I am a 57-year-old retired mother. My son is 31 years old this year. When I started to retire, my son got married. For my husband and I, he has always been a precious gem that we cherished and cared for. Therefore, when he got married, I naturally felt responsible for taking care of this new home. At first, I hoped that they would come to live with my husband and I, but my husband thought that the two of them need their own space to be independent. So, to take care of the children more conveniently, we moved to a residential area near the house where my son was living, and every morning, I ran over to help the children prepare food and clean up. In the afternoon I cooked dinner and waited until they went to bed before returning home. My life went on peacefully like that, until one day. That day, I woke up early to go to the market to buy food and bring it to my son's house, but when I got there, I couldn't open the door to enter the house. It wasn't that I had brought the wrong key, it was simply that the house had changed its locks. I had to call my daughter-in-law for a long time before she opened the door and explained, there have been many robberies in the building recently, so. That night, my son came over and gave me the new key. At that moment, I felt a little uncomfortable, especially when my son whispered, "Don't let my wife know." I understood that things were not as simple as I had thought before. The next day, I went to my son's house earlier than usual with a bunch of food and drinks. As soon as I got to the door, I heard an argument coming from outside. "You must have given the key to Mom, right?" Then a series of complaints from my daughter-in-law rang out behind the door, making me stand still. I never expected that all the effort and love that a mother-in-law like me had given them would be rewarded with such harsh criticism. And what made me feel even more bitter was that my son could only mumble and then reply, "That's my mother, what should I do?" I sadly carried the bag of food and walked back home. Seeing my husband, I felt so sorry for myself that tears welled up in my eyes. "Honey, why am I so exhausted? He's my only son, I wholeheartedly take care of him from meals to sleep, and yet this is what I got in return. What did I do wrong?" My husband just chuckled and patted me on the shoulder. "These kids really don't understand things, you just leave them there. I'll talk to them when I have a chance. And you? Look at our old friends, look, how many people are like her. They are all leisurely and carefree, visiting nearby provinces and cities, and traveling abroad. But she spends all day hanging around the market, cooking for her children. Because of them, she and I are behind the times compared to people of the same age." Each word of her husband was like a summer rain that woke me up. Didn't I want to go out and travel around? Thinking so, I nodded in agreement with him. After that, my husband arranged for me to go to the vast grasslands to rest for a few days. He also took me to visit a goat and dairy farm. Witnessing the mother goat giving birth and breastfeeding, I suddenly felt choked with emotion. My husband looked and pointed at the herd of goats grazing and said, "Nomadic people move from place to place all year round. If the mother goat is like her, unable to let go of anything, how can the baby goats survive? Besides, who would want to marry a mentally unweaned goat?" I turned around and saw my husband smiling meaningfully. Just one sentence from him helped me understand many things. My husband continued, "True motherly love is a process of skillful withdrawal." After speaking, he opened his phone and read me an article. Parents do not want to separate from their children when they are adults. They mistakenly think that it is because they love their children, but in fact, they unintentionally control their children completely. I glanced at my husband. "Do you mean that I am such a mother?" My husband burst out laughing and patted my shoulder and said, You are the type that can be saved." After returning from the trip, the first thing I did was to call my son and tell him that I wanted to visit his house. That day, I shared the most meaningful journey of my life, then seriously told them, "Mom is preparing to retire and enjoy the happiness of her old age. From now on, I probably won't come to your house often anymore, and even if I do, I will call you guys first." My son looked at me, confused for a long time, then asked, "Mom, are you angry with us?" "I'm not angry, I'm just learning how to enjoy my old age, my son." My son hugged me, making my eyes moist with sadness.